the lighting could make hair look different.
We got a new version of this piece of.
Yeah. We can
Alright,
tell.
just. Good.
Cool. So, Anna, I can't see the color of your glasses from here, unfortunately. But I can see that you have lovely hair. The ponytail really works for you. And you are rocking that flannel.
can just a little loud. All right. All right, if we can settle down for a minute. Okay. So, it's my pleasure this morning. I'm going to introduce to you Maureen Flanagan. Maureen is the Assistant Director of Human Services, the Human Services Department here in Tallinn. She's here to share a few facts on vaping and its consequences. And we're lucky that Maureen has brought a guest along with her this morning to help us understand some of the dangers associated with this behavior. So now it's my pleasure to introduce you Ms. Maureen Flanagan.
Good morning. Thanks for having us today. As the Human Services Assistant Director, I'm also the chair of the Local Prevention Council here in Tallinn. And hopefully for those of you who are hanging around next year, that'll come to mean more to you. So in last year's Substance Use and Risky Behavior Survey, which you all participated in, 88% of you said that you'd never vaped. So it's a pretty small group of you who are vaping, but only 38% of you responded that occasional vaping was either no risk or slight risk. So I hope that today's presenter, Ms. Dahl, her presentation will prompt you to reconsider that answer. I want to give you an added incentive to pay attention today. The Local Prevention Council is sponsoring an anti-vaping poster and public service announcement contest. You can choose either format or submit one of each if you'd like. First place winners will receive $200 in Amazon gift cards. Second place will receive $100 in Amazon gift cards, and third place will receive $50. The criteria used for judging the entries will be creativity, a strong anti-vaping message. You have to have at least one data point or fact that you learned from today's presentation, and the message or the PSA has to be appropriate for high schoolers, and we're going to share it with the middle schoolers, so it's got to be rated G. You'll get more information about all of that, how to submit your entries and everything. We'll put that together and put something out for you tomorrow. The deadline for that is June 10th. So I'd like to introduce Tricia Dahl, who's today's speaker. She's a senior research assistant at Yale University School of Medicine. She's been extensively involved in the dissemination of research findings about e-cigarettes to local communities, including schools, PTAs, coaches, etc. She's traveled to over 75 schools in Connecticut where she has presented talks about adolescent vaping behaviors and potential concerns to parents, administrators, teachers, and yourself. So please welcome Ms. Dahl.
First, I just want to let you know that I am not here to lecture you. I have an 18 and 19-year-old, both boys of my own, and I know that I'm not going to get anywhere lecturing you. I am here to just give you information. This is not my opinion. This is based on real data because I feel strongly about the fact that if this product is going to be marketed to our teens, then you guys deserve to know everything there is to know about them. If you decide it's still the right decision for you, then you can continue. But I think, and I feel very strongly about the fact that you guys don't have all this information, and you deserve to know this. So I'm going to go through a couple boring slides, and I'm going to go through them quickly. I just need everybody to be on the same page, and then I'll do some Q&A at the end if we have time. So first, just to get, and I'm going to zip through these quickly, the most important thing that I need you to know about every single vape out there, I don't care, they all look different, but somewhere within it, there's either an internal button or a button that has to be pushed in order to turn the device on. Every single device has a heating coil that heats up, boils the liquid, which turns it into the vapor and the user inhales it. Again, I'm going to go through this slide a little bit quicker, but just to kind of touch on where this all came about, e-cigarettes were meant to be a healthy alternative for smokers, which is why the first generation of these looked like cigarettes. These were people that were already using cigarettes, so we wanted to find a way, or the inventors wanted to find a way that they can do something cleaner, but still feel like they were smoking a cigarette. So these came in one flavor, tobacco. Later on, menthol was introduced, that's it. One dose of nicotine. You used it until there was nothing else coming out, and then you threw it out, you bought a new one. Then came the vape pens and the tank style devices. These now were rechargeable, came in different colors. You can choose from 14,000 different flavors, and you can choose from different levels of nicotine. Then you have the mods and the mechanical mods. These are the largest, most powerful devices out there. These are the only devices where you can actually change the temperature at which you heat the liquid and the power that you are heating it with. After that came the pods and the disposables, which pretty much take up everything that the teens are using now. So what are our concerns? The biggest concerns are what's in the juices, in these e-liquids and e-juices. Propylene glycol and vegetable glycerin are the base for every single e-liquid on the market. They're referred to on the packaging as PG and VG, and usually in a ratio, 50-50, 80-20, 70-30. Propylene glycol provides a throat hit, so something cigarette smokers say they like about smoking cigarettes is the feeling they get in the back of their throat. So when e-liquids were developed, they said, okay, we need to mimic that. They did that with propylene glycol. Propylene glycol is an oily-like substance that's been approved by the Food and Drug Administration, or the FDA, to be added to food. It's never been approved to inhale constantly. Vegetable glycerin comes from vegetable oil. Again, it's an oil. Approved to be added into food, never approved to be inhaled constantly. Propylene or vegetable glycerin, or the VG, makes the cloud. So something like a mod that if you're driving behind somebody that's using a mod, it looks like their car's on fire because every single surface is filled with this aerosol. That has a much higher ratio of VG than PG, and something like a Juul or these disposables, which are meant to be much more discreet and not make a larger cloud, has a much higher ratio of the PG rather than the VG. Then there are flavors, different flavors that make up all of these liquids. But depending on how complex the flavor is, will depend on how many, will determine how many chemicals are used. Something like cotton candy has 20 different chemicals that make up that one flavor. There is formaldehyde and many other aldehydes in these. Flavors like cinnamon bun, red hot, fireball, anything with that cinnamon flavor contain a chemical called cinnamaldehyde. It says it right on the bottle. And cinnamaldehyde comes with a warning that says you're not supposed to use it in a plastic pod or a plastic cartridge because it's a corrosive. It'll eat away at the plastic. They're not concerned with you vaping it, but just make sure you use it in a glass pod. Things like caramel or anything, butterscotch, anything with a buttery flavor contains chemicals like diacetyl. Diacetyls contributed to many cases of popcorn lung where there is no cure for. Then there's alcohol that helps shuttle the nicotine to your brain, and finally there's nicotine in different levels of it. So just to get into some of the biggest differences between the older generation devices and our newer pod styles and disposables. The biggest thing is the type of nicotine that's used. The older generation devices use something called free-base nicotine, which is nicotine in its purest form. Newer generations use something called salt-based nicotine, and salt-based nicotine is free-base nicotine with salt added. The reason they add salt to it is because when you get to higher levels of nicotine, usually around 20 milligrams, it starts to become very, very irritating to vape. So people switch over to these salt-based nicotines. You can lower the pH level, which is the part that makes it uncomfortable to vape, and you're able to vape much higher levels of nicotine. The problem is, one of the problems, is that when you add this salt, which is called benzoic acid, and here's where that boring slide comes in, and you have heat, which we know every single e-liquid has heat, and you combine that with vitamin C, which many of the liquids have vitamin C in it, certainly not to be healthy, just because a lot of these chemicals also have vitamin C in it. The combination of those three things creates a new chemical called benzene, which is a well-known carcinogen or cancer-causing chemical. So we know that salt-based nicotine is creating carcinogens. We also know that every single device, as the coil breaks down, it releases metallic particles into your lungs and your organs, like lead, nickel, and cadmium. 59 milligrams. I've been doing research on tobacco for over 21 years now. We've never seen anything on the market, not a cigarette, not a cigar, not a pipe, that has anything even close to 59 milligrams of nicotine. One pod is equal to a pack of cigarettes. That's 20 cigarettes in that one little pod. It's advertised on most of these devices as 5% or 6% nicotine. Now, it doesn't matter if you're a student or an adult. 5 to 6% does not sound like a lot. That's the strength of the nicotine within the device. So it's a little bit deceiving, and it's deceiving on purpose. It's actually higher than anything out there. Some of the reasons that nicotine is concerning is that it's very harmful to your brain. Your brains are changing until you're 25 years old. Once you change some of the ways that your brain fires or the pathways that are created, there are some of those pathways that you cannot change again. So decisions that you're making as a teenager can affect the rest of your life. And this is the most startling reason, and this is why I come to talk to you guys about it, because I don't think you're all aware of how powerful nicotine is. It's one of the most powerful chemicals out there, and just that one chemical can change your entire brain. So it can make anxieties worse. It can cause depression, problems with memory, attention, and learning, make you more impulsive. And we know that all of these pod devices have very, very high levels of nicotine. To go into it a little bit further, when you vape, you inhale the aerosol, goes through your lungs to your brain, to the pleasure center of your brain, releases a chemical called dopamine. Makes you feel good. That's why people like it. The problem is your body naturally produces dopamine. So, you win a lacrosse game against E.O. Smith. That feeling of excitement that you get is your body's natural production of dopamine. You ace your final exam, which sure will be coming up soon. That feeling of excitement that you get in your brain is your body's natural production of dopamine. When you vape on a regular basis, our bodies are very, very efficient. And your brain says, something else is coming on board releasing this chemical. There's no reason that I need to keep making it. So over time, your body starts to drop how much dopamine that it makes on its own. Well, now if you decide that you don't want to vape anymore for whatever reason it may be, you don't feel the way that you used to. Those things that used to get you excited, don't do it anymore. Because your production of dopamine is down here instead of up here where it started. And the only way that you can start to feel normal again is to reintroduce nicotine. That's how powerful nicotine is against your brain. Over 90% of every single adult who is addicted to nicotine started before they were 25 years old, because that's when all of this wiring happens. Does it just affect your brain? It affects other parts of your body. We know that it affects your heart, releases adrenaline, And it makes your heart beat faster, makes you breathe faster. This is why so many athletes thought, hey, this would be a great idea to do before games. It'll give me that adrenaline rush. Maybe if it didn't affect your lungs and affect the way that you're breathing that way. So someone that has asthma is gonna feel it a lot sooner than someone else might feel it. And we're gonna go into how it's affecting your lungs, but it can do permanent damage to your lungs. Oh, it's also, I can see that my little clickers aren't working now. It also creates acid reflux. So when you have that much of a stimulant, which nicotine is, in your body, it relaxes the muscle on top of your stomach that keeps all the acids that break down our food down in our stomach. So when it relaxes that muscle, the acids come up, causes increased acid reflux. That's just a fancy name for heartburn. It causes burning in your chest and in your throat. We know that it also affects your reproductive organs, and it affects your pancreas. So your pancreas is an organ in your body that produces insulin. Someone that has diabetes doesn't produce enough insulin, so they take medication to keep their insulin where it should be, so their blood sugar levels are where they're supposed to be, and their organs function the way they're supposed to. Someone that vapes on a regular basis does not produce enough insulin. Their blood sugar levels are not where they're supposed to be, only they don't know it. So they don't take medication for it. Now, we're not ones to really guess things at Yale. We have to base it all on science, but it doesn't take a rocket scientist to see that if this happens with diabetics, could very well happen with people that are vaping. Another concern we have is that most users think just a vapor, water vapor, what's the big deal? Well, there's no water in it. It's an aerosol. Water vapor will evaporate. If you've ever spilled any of that e-liquid on a counter, you know that that doesn't ever evaporate. The only way that it's gonna disappear is if somebody wipes it up. Just like olive oil. That's on the counter until your parent comes by and wipes it up. That thing's gonna stay there until someone makes it go away. It doesn't evaporate. Water vapor would be absorbed by our lung tissue. Aerosol are larger molecules that aren't absorbed by our lung tissues. So they sit on our lung tissue. The more you vape, the more of these molecules sit on your lung tissue. We don't know what to do in the medical field with lungs that are coated with oil. Nobody's ever voluntarily inhaled oil before, which is why the FDA never approved this for constant inhalation. I've had kids say to me, well, why is it for sale then, if the FDA didn't approve it? Well, it took me until I was in research to understand that anybody can sell anything. The FDA doesn't have to approve things just to be sold. The FDA gets involved when there are issues. And the FDA is involved now, but we have a whole generation that's addicted to nicotine. So we can't just say, no more of these, because we all know what happens when you're addicted to nicotine and you don't have the nicotine to use. So we need to figure out a way to make this work. Some of the myths, it's just flavoring, strawberry. I'd love to tell you strawberry e-liquids, crushed up strawberries, but there's nothing strawberry about it. There's not even anything called strawberry flavoring in it. It's a bunch of chemicals that you can't say the name of that together smell like strawberry, so it tastes like strawberry. Just water vapor, we know that's not the case. My vape says it's nicotine free, so there's no way I'm going to be addicted. Many of them say nicotine free. That doesn't mean they are completely nicotine free. And regardless, you still are getting that oil base that you're inhaling, that our lungs can't handle. I don't have an addictive personality. It takes 10 seconds for our body when you vape to get that nicotine to your brain. And those dopamine receptors, or that pleasure center of your brain, is very powerful. Nobody wakes up and says, you know, today's the day I want to get addicted. They don't do that. You use it once, you feel good. So you say, you know what, I'm just going to use it one more time. I'm at a party, whatever. And then it's a really rough day today. I liked the way I felt from it. I'm just going to use it one more time. And that's how addictions begin. Nobody likes to ever feel that they're addicted, because to teens that means they've lost power or control over their mind. Well, you know what? That happens with everyone. And you guys have insane lives right now. You have your school. You're expected to get good grades. Then there's honor societies. Then there's after-school activities. Then there's sports. Then there's work. Then there's your personal life. And all of these things are a lot of pressure for teens to do the best they can be, do the best they can, be the best they can be. And then you have this device that's introduced that relaxes you because you're breathing in slowly, you're exhaling slowly. It smells good, it tastes good, and you know nothing about nicotine. You only know everything about tobacco because we've talked about tobacco till we were blue in the face. Everybody knows cigarettes cause cancer. We never talked about nicotine. So it's very easy to see how quickly this whole generation, and I love to think that Tolland is different than the rest of the state of Connecticut, but the rest of the state of Connecticut says that 1 in 4 of our high school seniors is vaping, which is much higher than the statistic that was given. So just think about this and try and make the decision that would work. It's not all that it's cut out to be. And unfortunately, and gosh, I hate this slide, and I hated this whole gateway effect thing when I was in high school, because it felt like everything out there had a gateway effect. But I hate to tell you, but so does nicotine. Research studies show that 1 in 6 teens that start out vaping will eventually move to combustible cigarettes. You might say cigarettes are disgusting, I would never smoke. When you're addicted to nicotine, cigarettes will always be easier to get. Vaping marijuana. We know marijuana has medicinal purposes. We don't even know if there's medicinal purposes to vaping marijuana. It's a much more intense high. It's very hard to know how much you're getting. Folks, it's called THC oil for a reason. My lungs can't handle the oil either. So do the benefits of vaping it outweigh what it's doing to the lungs? Not quite sure about that. The devices that are being passed around in schools, the same way I'd imagine that you wouldn't go up to a party and find a solo cup in the middle of a party, not know who it belongs to or what's in it, and just take a sip from it. You have no idea what's in these pods. Anybody can put anything in them, and you would have no idea. There is no way to tell. So we know right now there's the THC vapes, the psychoactive ingredient from the marijuana plant. It's oil. Then there's the CBD vapes. CBD vapes. That's like, people like to say, oh, that's the healthier one. That's because it's not psychoactive and it's better for you. It doesn't have THC in it. Well, they're allowed to have 2 to 3% THC in it. CBD is one drug or one substance that is approved by the FDA. It's a medication to treat seizures. None of these devices have ever been approved to use. And then some brilliant person came up with this Delta 8 THC. Let's take a psychoactive substance and add some household chemicals to it and offer it to people to vape, because that sounds really healthy. Dabbing. I know it's still out there now. It was much, much more prevalent before the pandemic that we heard about it, we were talking about it. Guys, it's not in the news because schools don't want people to know. Every single week, at least one school was sending a student to the emergency room from overdosing with dabbing. Dabbing is butane hash oil, a wax-like substance. It's like freebasing marijuana. It's 30 times more powerful than combustible marijuana. Very easy to overdose, which is why kids were going to the emergency room. Some of the side effects, rapid heartbeat, blackouts, feeling like bugs are crawling under your skin, loss of consciousness, and psychotic symptoms like paranoia and hallucinations. You may not think that marijuana is very powerful or could do much. Trust me, it's not all that it's cut out to be. So there are a lot of, just make sure all my things. There are a lot of agencies out there that can help you or assist you if you are vaping and want help. If you go to your school counselor and say, I'd like to get help to stop vaping, their job is not to call your parent and tell them, hey, did you know your kid's vaping? Their job is to help you. There are other agencies out there as well. We have a program now. It's completely virtual. It's a 5-week-long study, so you never have to see anybody except for online. We teach you how to deal with your cravings, how to deal with the stress. Nicotine withdrawal is no joke. It is very hard to do on your own, whether you're an adolescent or you're an adult. The withdrawal symptoms are nausea, headaches, irritability. You get angry very easy. It's much easier when you hit that peak of withdrawal symptoms to just start back up again and not have to deal with it. We try and help you through it so you can deal effectively with it. We pay up to $436 to quit vaping. And the reason I have to say up to is not because we try and scam you. There's no needles, there's no medication. I say up to because if you show up to one appointment, you're not gonna get $436. You have to complete the study. We also have 2 different arms that you can be randomized in. So one, you get paid just for showing up to your weekly counseling sessions virtually. Regardless if you've been able to stop or not, you get paid. The other one, you get paid more because you show up to your weekly counseling sessions and you show us on these saliva samples that we get to you, and it shows us if you have any cotinine. And that's the only thing we're looking at. Is cotinine, and cotinine is a byproduct of nicotine that your saliva and your urine shows. So by that saliva sample, on the Zoom call, we can tell if you've been effective at stopping. And if you have, you get more money. The other thing that we have is an MRI study. Again, there's no medication, no needles, there's no radiation with an MRI. That study obviously cannot be virtual. You have to come down to Yale for whether you vape or you do not vape. And you can do it in conjunction with this study if you do vape. It's somewhat boring. It's a 3-hour MRI where you're just laying there. Both my boys did it. It's $280, so kind of worth being bored for 3 hours. And then there's a couple online surveys that you do. So those are the different studies that we have, and then you get a video of your brain afterwards. So with that, looks like I have a few minutes to answer any questions that you guys might have. Anybody have any questions about anything? Nope? All right. Thank you very much.
All right, again, it's very useful information. If you have questions that you didn't want to answer now, again, you can reach out to one of us at a later point. We'll point you in the right direction so that you can get those answered. So what we're going to do is we have about 5 minutes left. We're going to stay here. We're going to stay in our seats. Okay, and then when the bell rings, we'll leave and we'll go on to the next block. All right? We're good?
Yeah.